business, but as someone who represents the bigger end of town, you think this is actually a pretty good budget?
Look, I do. My family is involved in small business and large, and I think it's been as fair and even-handed as possible. I love the fact that it's out there really supporting small business. I think it's fantastic to have those instant write-offs. I think it's fantastic that small business will have a tax rate of 28.5%. That's now starting to get really competitive. So, as an Australian who's really started a small business a couple of times and seen it grown into a big business, that kind of helping hand would have really given me a hand up in those critical times. So I'm delighted to see it.
Now, let me return to that criticism you have been making of BHP and Rio in particular. What exactly are you saying the government should do here about production levels, about what these majors are doing to the price of iron ore?
David, I don't think any government should really stand by and see something. I'm sure, David, that you've never seen in your life, that a chief executive of even a small company would actually talk down their own commodity price, their own market price. We've seen that not once but twice now, and in a totally uniform fashion. Both those companies have been talking the iron ore price down. They've been threatening to oversupply, to be the last man standing, to flood the markets. It just isn't rational unless, of course, we're talking about market share. And David, a couple of percentage points of market share isn't really worth pulling $60 billion of revenue out of the Australian economy, or $20 billion of tax receipts. Imagine, David, what we could have done with that extra $20 billion in this budget. More schools, hospitals.
Yeah, but what can government do about that? I mean, what can government do about that? The Minerals Council, which represents BHP and Rio, says, you don't want to damage Australia's reputation by sending a signal that somehow free market forces aren't at play, that we're not a reliable and safe destination for investment and supply.
I think, David, the opposite here is true. I think our reputation was in danger of being damaged until the government, both the state and the federal government, started making pretty firm statements that they're not going to tolerate behaviour which sees the iron ore majors talk down the iron ore price to the detriment of all the Australian people, just to try and push competitors out and gain market share. I actually think it's great for Australia's reputation when they see poor behaviour, that they're willing to arrest it, they're willing to hold companies to account, they're willing to put them on the mat and say, just how is your behaviour good for Australia? Because if it's not good for Australia, then really how are you being a great corporate citizen?